Hello, in this video I want to show you how I am using my favorite brushes in Procreate. You can follow the link in the description of this video to download my brushes and Procreate templates, so you can easily follow along. We will not draw a super pretty drawing this time because I am not experienced enough to draw and speak at the same time, so I will just do a quick demo. So first we start with the template that has this nice pretty texture, and we have a bunch of layers on it. And you can also import the downloaded brushes over here. So let's begin with soft flat pencil. This is the brush I'm using to draw sketches. So this is the first step. Here also you can download my swatches to follow along and to pick the colors that I'm picking. So I pick the dark color, and I'm going to draw a simple sketch. It's going to be like a sphere in a box, like so. So the beauty of this brush is that it's relatively transparent and it's pretty big, so you cannot really draw any details with it, and it kind of forces you not to think about trying to make your drawing pretty, and you can't draw the details with it anyway, so you might as well focus on the general shapes and the composition and all that stuff that matches at the beginning of the drawing. And it's really nice and comfortable to draw rough sketches with this brush, and that's usually pretty much always the way I'm starting my drawings. So here I would draw a sphere, I would draw the general construction. It's going to be pretty rough. Then I would draw like a box behind it. Again, not trying to make the drawing pretty because the point is to demonstrate my brushes, not to do some amazing art over here. So this is generally how I would draw my basic sketch. I also draw shadows on my sketches because it really helps me to understand the general shapes of what I'm drawing, and they're really important later for shading. So that's basically it. So after I have the general sketch done, I tap with 2 fingers on the rough sketch and decrease its opacity so that it's barely visible. And I move on to the clean sketch and layer and switch to the pencil brush. And this pencil brush is basically designed to simulate a simple pencil. It's much smaller than the flat pencil brush, and its size and opacity depends on the pressure. And it's really awesome to use it to clean up the rough sketch. It still doesn't have to be super precise or pretty, but this is the stage where you can add some details, more precise shapes, make lines more careful. So at first you have a really fat line that defines the general shape, but because it's so thick you can't really figure out where exactly the shape begins and ends. So with the smaller pencil you can precisely define what's going on over here, like so. And this is the great next step. Sometimes I skip it, so sometimes if I'm drawing something really simple, I skip right to the next brush in which I'm outlining. But if I feel like I need to add more details and understand my sketch much better, I usually use the pencil. Let me get it done pretty quickly. There we go. Okay. So the next brush I'm using is pen brush. I switch to the outline layer. At this point I can hide the rough sketch layer and again decrease the opacity of the clean sketch so that it's barely visible. And on the outline layer I can draw the final clean outlines. So this is just a pretty small brush, and the size depends on the pressure. And here I'm just going to draw over my clean sketch to create my final shapes, like so. It's not super easy to do it immediately, so sometimes I undo and try to draw the line again to make it cleaner. Sometimes I switch to the lazy pen brush, which is identical to the pen brush, but in its setting I have turned on the streamline, and it allows me to draw much cleaner and less jittery lines, like so. So the lines become much cleaner. And finally, when I need to draw a really precise shape, I cheat a little bit more. Like for example, right now I'm not going to really put a lot of effort, because usually, you know, when I'm trying to draw a clean outline, I can undo my stroke maybe 5 to 10 times before I'm really happy with it, with how it looks like. So it would be like a slow process of trying to get it right. But sometimes for geometrical forms, Procreate allows you to very conveniently create simple shapes. So for example, let me drop the best I can the circle. And then once I'm done, I hold the pencil out of the screen, and it automatically creates a pretty beautiful and clean circle for me. And you can select any shape and switch between ellipse and circle and edit the key points. It's really amazing feature. It allows you to draw very clean lines very quickly, and it's very often very useful. So for the shadow I will do the same thing. I will do my best to just outline it. And at the end of the stroke I keep holding pencil on the screen, and it automatically turns into this awesome clean shape, and then I can edit it until I'm happy with it. Same works with the straight lines. If you hold it, it allows you to draw the straight line in any direction that you want. And if you hold the pencil and also tap with the finger on the screen, it makes the line vertical. Super convenient. I love this about Procreate. So let's finish drawing our outline. And we can move on to the next brush. And so it's done. Beautiful. So now I can hide the clean sketch and all I have is outline. And the next step is to fill things with flat colors. So I go to the flat color layer. So let's say I want the sphere to be dark. I'm gonna make it light actually instead. And I can just drag the color from the color picker onto the sphere. And as you notice I'm on the flat color layer, but it still fills inside of the outline, because the outline layer is set to the reference mode. So when you click on the layer, you can click on the reference, and that means that whenever you will try to fill in the shape, even if you're on a different layer, it will still be thinking about the outline layer in terms of shapes. So it will fill in inside of the outline. And I'm going to use, let's say, darker color for the box. You see, because sometimes the outline is imperfect, so sometimes there are gaps in it. So it will not fill the shape correctly. It will fill the whole canvas for you. That's not what you want, obviously. And sometimes it makes sense to go back and correct the outline and to fill in this gap so that it's gone. But really, in practical terms, it's much better to just use a brush. So here we are moving on to the next brush, which is the flat size brush. It looks like this. It's basically just a pretty big brush. Its size is controlled with the pressure, and it has a really nice shape. So it has basically this square shape that creates the strokes that I really enjoy, and gives me a lot of control over the size of the brush. I'm still often changing its size if I need to draw something really precise and small, and the rest of the size is controlled by the pressure. Very convenient for filling in the shapes and the shadows. Let me quickly get it done. So just filling in the general shapes. Again, notice that I'm drawing everything in the flat color. So flat color is just, in 3D they call it diffuse. So it's just a color of an object in the very even lighting. So there are no lights, no shadows. There is just the color of the object. Like imagine if it would be an even white light around it, and that's just what it is. So when you think about the color of an object, a cup is white, an apple is red, etc. And these flat colors allow you to set the basics that you can later tweak and change in order to add lighting to the scene. So finally I'm adding the shadows, and these are our flat colors. That's all you need for that. And the next step is to add lighting. So for the box I'm just going to pick a bit of a darker color, like so. And sometimes sometimes I just draw the shadows, but sometimes I want to draw the lighter parts with the lighter colors, so to add highlights. In this case I'm going to make one side of the cube darker and the other one is lighter, and I'm still going to keep using the flat size brush to draw the shadow on the sphere. When I'm drawing shadows, I'm still thinking about keeping their shapes as simple as possible. Oh, by the way, another trick, you can click on a layer and select clipping mask, and that means that it will be impossible to draw outside of the bounds of the flat color layer. So because the flat color layer is filled in, fills in these shapes but not outside of the shapes, on the lighting layer I can draw any strokes and they will not go out of bounds of this flat color layer, which makes drawing things much faster and easier. Anyway, back to shadows. The most important thing to understand about the shadows is that you don't want to make them blurry, and you don't want to just draw some random shapes and just shade some part of the object a little bit darker without understanding exactly what you're drawing. So the best solution to this, especially if you're new, but even if you're not, is to draw these shapes with the very hard edges. So as you can see, there's no blurred edges right now. There's still the same hard brush, and I'm just drawing one single shape, and I'm trying to make it clean and simple. So as you can see, it's just a half moon shape. So I'm really thinking about the shapes of the shadows as much as I'm thinking about the shapes of an object that I'm drawing. So this is the shadow. I'm going to draw a little bit lighter color of the bounce light over here. So as you know, or if you don't, you will see it in my other tutorials, that light gets reflected from the ground and highlights the bottom part of the sphere. And again, notice that I'm drawing not just a random shape, not just something blurry, but a clear triangle that demonstrates the bounce light. And I'm going to draw a little bit more extra light here. This is going to represent the light from the secondary light source. For example, if the main light source is the sun, this would be the color from the sky. And I can use the brighter colors over here to draw the shape of the highlighted area. Again, keeping the shapes very simple, it's extremely convenient and useful. And finally, one single highlight. over here. Again, not just a random circle or a random shape, but for example, I want to make it simple and interesting, like so. Alright, so this is our lighting layer, and there's only one final step left, the overbind. And on the overbind stage, what I do is basically all I need is to blur these edges. I also can draw some paint. I can also paint some details, not some details to my drawings, but really at this point, I mainly focus on blurring the edges. So here I'm using the square brush with 50% of opacity. It looks like this. It's kind of like a marker with 50% opacity, and it is perfect for blending colors. So as you can see, this hard edge does look really great. So what I want to do is to pick the color of the shadow and then draw with this color at 50% opacity over the color of the light. Actually, I'm just going to do this just to sample the color between the shadow and the light. So as you can see, this color, I undo the stroke and I have this color now that is halfway between light and between shadow. It's darker than light and brighter than shadow. And now I use this 50% color to draw right over the hard edge. Actually, I'm going to turn on the clipping mask again. So I'm going to draw with this 50% color and with a bunch of small brush strokes right over the edge of my shadow, creating this 50% shade. And then I will pick this color that I have created, and I'm going to do the same thing again to blur the edge between the half color and the light again. So I'm going to take this color, 50% opacity, draw on the light layer, over the light, pick this color, so halfway between these two, and I will draw a bunch of strokes in between them. And that's how you blur the edges. It may seem a little bit tedious, so the same thing to do on the dark side. It may seem a little bit tedious, but the beauty of this process is that first of all, it really enhances your understanding of what you're doing, which is very important for novice artists. And also, as you can see, it creates these really nice brush strokes. So you could actually just take a huge airbrush with very soft edges and do it much faster, but the result wouldn't look as well as just smoothing these edges with my method. And the same thing between these two edges. So I'm going to, and it actually doesn't take all that much time to get done. So just using 50% opacity to blur the edges, picking colors, blurring some more, picking this color. And this creates these nice beautiful brush strokes that I enjoy very much. And that's how you create smooth edges between shapes. Also, this is a good time to do some occlusion. So when the sphere touches the ground, there's a darker shade, darker shadow. Both the shadow and the sphere will get a little bit darker. Again, it's okay to draw this with 50% opacity. And I'm going to also pick the darker color for the sphere. Like so. So there you go, and for the box it's pretty much the same thing, so you want to draw a little bit brighter colors to represent the reflected light. You got the idea, I think. And that's it. These are the brushes that I'm using. Very, very simple process, very organized and clean layers, which I really enjoy. And the most important thing about this process is that it really promotes understanding. So you are not just placing random brush strokes without knowing what you do. Every time you do something, you have very conscious understanding of all the shapes, all the colors, and it's really, really great for practicing drawing, and it also gets you pretty nice results. So I hope this video was useful to you. Once again, link in the description, download all the stuff to follow along with all of my future tutorials, and I'll see you in my future videos.